I moved into my house nearly 6 years ago. It was a beautiful little cul-de-sac on the edge of a small town. Quiet, tree-lined, mostly older folks, a few young families here and there. It was peaceful. The kind of place where you'd think, finally, I can breathe. The house was older, sure, but it had character. Big windows, brick facade, an old oak tree that shaded most of the front yard. I fixed it up little by little over time, replacing old siding, redoing the landscaping, painting the porch railing. Felt like home. But of course nothing gold ever stays. The HOA in this neighborhood wasn't super strict. At least not at first. I'd get the occasional newsletter with gentle reminders about lawn care or trash bin etiquette. Nothing aggressive. Then, about a year after I moved in, a new president took over. Her name was Karen. Yes, seriously, Karen. She was probably mid-50s, short platinum hair, always in crisp khakis and a pastel top like she walked out of a catalog. She didn't wave when she passed by. She inspected. You could feel her eyes trailing your house like a scanner, picking up every little thing she didn't like. The first notice I got from the HOA under her leadership was about my mailbox. It was slightly tilted, barely noticeable unless you stood directly in front of it and stared. But apparently it was a safety hazard, and didn't meet community visual standards. Fine, I fixed it. The second notice came a week later. My garbage bins had been visible from the street for too long after pickup. They were out for maybe 5 hours. The truck came at 7 a.m. and I didn't get home from work until close to 6. That was the first time I felt like something was off. Then came the real stuff. The truly insane stuff. She started taking photos of my house. First I didn't notice. But then one day I caught her. I was sitting on my porch with a cup of coffee on a Saturday morning when I saw her across the street. She had her phone up, angled just slightly toward my yard. She tapped it, then kept walking like nothing happened. I went inside and checked my security cam. There she was, stopping in front of my house, taking pictures, then casually walking off like some low-budget secret agent. I laughed it off at the time. Whatever. Let her be weird. Then I got a letter in the mail. A violation. Unapproved plant variety in front yard. I had planted some lavender and rosemary along my walkway. Nothing huge, just a few bushes. According to Karen, they were invasive and not in compliance with approved flora. That was new to me, so I requested the approved list. She never sent it. Instead, I got another letter a week later. This time, the complaint was that my porch light bulb was too bright. Not the fixture, the bulb. She said it disturbed the visual harmony of the block. I didn't even know that was a thing. At this point, I started to push back. I sent an email asking for clarification on the violations. I asked for the rulebook. I asked for appeal options. No response. Then a fine came. $50. Then another. And another. She fined me for everything. For having a car parked in my driveway for 2 days while my cousin visited. For leaving tools visible while working on a gutter. Once, she wrote me up because my wind chimes were audible from the street. The worst part. No one else on the street was getting these notices. I spoke to my neighbor Sam, a retired mechanic who lived next door. He had a trailer in his driveway, tools all over his garage. Not a peep from the HOA. My other neighbor, Lily, had garden beds along the sidewalk that looked like a small farm. No issues. It was just me. First, I thought maybe I was just unlucky. But then I overheard something at the grocery store that changed everything. Karen was standing in line in front of me, chatting with another woman from the neighborhood. She didn't see me behind her. She said, and I quote, "That guy at 842 thinks he's above the rules. He's not. I'm going to make him clean up or move out." That's when it got real. I decided to fight back. Not aggressively, strategically. First, I began keeping records. Every letter, every notice, every fine, scanned and time-stamped. I created a folder labeled HOA Harassment. I also started filming. I added a second camera to my front porch and a trail cam on the side yard. Within 2 weeks, I had footage of Karen stepping onto my property 5 times. Once, she walked right up to my front door, measured the space between my doormat and the threshold, and wrote something down on her clipboard. She trespassed. Repeatedly. I brought this to the HOA board. Karen had stacked it with her friends, but one member, George, a quiet guy who lived 3 streets over, actually listened. He asked for a copy of the footage. I sent it. A week later, I was called into a mediation meeting. Karen didn't show up. Instead, she sent an email claiming she felt threatened and would not attend unless I signed a statement saying I would comply with all future violation notices without protest. I refused. That's when the fines jumped to $250. She claimed I had installed an unapproved security system, which violated aesthetic guidelines. I laughed out loud reading that one. She was literally being filmed breaking the rules, and she wanted the camera gone. I filed a police report for harassment and trespassing. The officer who took my statement had dealt with her before. He wasn't surprised. He advised me to install a second layer of fencing around my backyard. I did. I also hired a lawyer. I didn't go in guns blazing. I just wanted someone to review the HOA bylaws and see if any of this held water. Turns out, half the violations weren't even enforceable. They were based on guidelines that had never been formally adopted by a board vote. Even better, the bylaws required all board meetings to be recorded and made available to homeowners. Karen had been skipping that requirement for over a year. I requested those records. She refused. That was a violation in itself. With my lawyer's help, I filed a formal complaint with the city and with the state's HOA Oversight Committee. Took a while, but eventually they opened an investigation. That's when everything unraveled. Several neighbors came forward. One elderly couple had been fined for having a blue curtain in their window, something that Karen claimed clashed with the exterior paint. Another woman got written up for parking her car slightly crooked in her driveway. The stories kept coming. Turns out, Karen had been targeting anyone who didn't fit her vision of the neighborhood. If your house didn't look like something from her HGTV dreams, she made you miserable. The investigation led to a vote. A full community vote to remove her from the board. She fought it. Sent letters claiming she was being bullied, targeted, unfairly treated. But no one bought it. The footage, the testimonies, the pattern, it was all too clear. The vote passed. She was out. I thought that would be the end of it. I really did. But about 2 months later, I noticed a for sale sign in her yard. The rumor. The new HOA president told her she'd be held to the same rules she tried to impose. And suddenly, Karen didn't want to stay. I never saw her again after that. But every now and then, when I water my rosemary or hear the soft ring of my wind chimes in the breeze, I smile just a little. And I remember, peace is quietest after a storm.